Okay, so very good morning to all of you, second semester MA evening students. Today is the second and the last class that has been allotted to me for your 10 days online classes from 20th to 30th. In my previous class, I have discussed all the soliloquies of Hamlet. Now, today, can you listen to my voice? Raise your hand. শোনা যাচ্ছে?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So today I will be discussing another topic that is very important: the madness of Hamlet. Hamlet's madness. Keep your pen, keep your notebook with you, because I will be referring some lines from different acts and scenes that you have to note down, and you will find those lines from the text, any text. So this will be the another broad question, another long question, which will be important for your final exam. If some classes will be more allotted hereafter, after 30th, then I will discuss. But before, as there were only 2 classes allotted to me, I have to find out the 2 most important topics among all the topics. So this one is the second one, whether Hamlet's madness is genuine or feigned. That means Hamlet's apparent madness is something which is genuine, or is it something which is concocted? That means which is feigned. That we have to find out today. So let us start the discussion right now. So the main topic of discussion is the problem of Hamlet's madness. So there are 2 different opinions regarding Hamlet's madness. One group of critics, or one group of Shakespeare critics or Shakespeare criticism says that it is the madness of Hamlet is genuine, and another group, they vociferate that no, this madness is not at all genuine, it is absolutely feigned and concocted because of the situation, and it is the creation of the mind of the Hamlet. So we will discuss the things and some other areas by citing some lines from different acts and scenes, and then we will discuss some critical opinions of different renowned critics like Eliot, Dowden, etc. at the end of my discussion. So first, you just write down Act 1, Scene 5. In Act 1, Scene 5, we will find 3 lines, line number 177 to 180. Line number 177 to 180. I read the lines. Here as before, never, so help you mercy, how strange or odd soever I bear myself, as I perchance hereafter shall think meet to put an antique disposition on. So one of the problems that we face in the course of our reading of this particular play, Shakespeare's Hamlet, the question is being raised whether this Hamlet's madness that has been shown in the drama, whether it is genuine or whether it is feigned. F-E-I-G-N-E-D, feigned, that means concocted, not real. So I have already told that opinions differ in this regard. Some critics say that it is genuine, and some critics say that no, it is not genuine, it is something which is feigned or which is concocted. So Hamlet has lost his reason under the pressure of circumstances. As some critics say that Hamlet has lost his reason under the pressure of circumstances, and why? What is the circumstances? It is because of the murder of his father and the hasty marriage of his mother. So mother's hasty remarriage and the ghost's revelation that Hamlet's father was murdered by his uncle. So these are the two conditions, the two situations which compel Hamlet to behave in such an eccentric way. Some critics they think like that. So, and another group they think that no, Hamlet's madness is something which is antique disposition. So, which has been decided early in the play, as I have already told in Act One, Scene 5, line number 177 to 180, where you will this in these 4 lines you will see the last line to put an antique disposition on. This particular line is there mentioned in 180. So in view of this decision, Hamlet, it does not seem right for anybody to interpret Hamlet's subsequent behavior or talk, which at places are currently very odd or strange or madness. So we have to discuss a little bit in depth. First, another section, another quotation I want to mention from Act 2. Write down the lines. Act 2, Scene 1, line number 77 to 84. Act 2, Scene 1, line number 77 to 84. Have you got or not? So raise your hand, raise your finger. Yes. So Act 2, Scene 1, line number 77 to 84. And also in that same act and same scene, line number 87 to 100. Line number 87 to 100. Here we find that Ophelia describes to her father. Ophelia describes to her father the strange behavior of Hamlet when he was called on her in her closet. So Ophelia's description to her father about the strange behavior of Hamlet when he was called by her in her closet. So Hamlet had entered Ophelia's closet in some sort of distorted garments, and taking her by the wrist and holding her heart, scrutinized her face and raised a sigh so piteous and profound as it did seem to shatter all his bulk. So you just wait, I read these lines. These are very important lines. Act 2, Scene 1. You also open the text. Act 2, Scene. If you have the text by your side, you can open Act 2, Scene 1. Act 2, Scene 1, line number 77 to 84, where Ophelia is saying, my lord, as I was, it is in page number 33 in Dayton's edition, it is in page number 33. So, my lord, as I was sewing in my closet, Lord Hamlet with his doublet all unbraced, no hat upon his head, his stockings fouled, ungartered, and down Jeeve to his ankle, pale as his shirt, his knees knocking each other, and with a look so piteous in purport as if he had been loosed out of hell. These 2 lines are very important. As if, তার আগের লাইনটা, and with a look so piteous, and with a look so piteous in purport as if he had been loosed out of hell. To speak of horror, he comes before me. To speak of horror, he comes before me. Then again, you find from line number 87 to 100, line in the same page, line number 88, Ophelia's speech. He took me by the wrist and held me hard, then goes he to the length of all his arm, and with his other hand thus over his brow, he falls so much perusal of my face. Perusal means reading, intense reading. That is called perusal. Perusal of my face as he would draw it. Long stayed he so, at last, a little shaking of mine arm, and thrice his head thus waving up and down. Next three lines are very important. He raised his sigh of so piteous and profound, as it did seem to shatter all his bulk and end his being. These three lines are very important. He raised a sigh so piteous and profound, as it did seem to shatter all his bulk and end his being. So you read this, the rest of the speech. So I conclude here by citing these three most important lines here. Where it has been suggested by Ophelia the strange behavior of Hamlet, and she confessed it to her father. So here also, hearing this description, here is this description, Polonius jumps to the conclusion that Hamlet's abnormal mental condition is due to his disappointment in love. So another condition might be there, and which was suggested by Polonius, that Hamlet's this kind of whimsical behavior, this kind of madness might be the result of the disappointment in love. So, under her father's instruction, Ophelia had refused to meet Hamlet. Ophelia's father had given some instruction not to meet with Hamlet, and for this reason, perhaps the disappointment might have raised in the head of Hamlet, and this might be one of the causes of his behaving in such a very uncanny way. So, that is the thing that was suggested by Polonius. So the very ecstasy of love, what Polonius calls Hamlet's mental condition at this stage, the very ecstasy of love. Write down this particular phrase: the very ecstasy of love. The very ecstasy, ECSTASY, very ecstasy of love. That has been uttered by Polonius to suggest Hamlet's mental condition, and immediately goes to the king to acquaint him with what has happened. So, a reader's impression of Hamlet's madness. You just wait for 1 minute. I am coming. So, ecstasy of love. Here, reader's impression is that Hamlet speaks to Polonius of two courtiers. There were two courtiers. One is Rosencrantz and another is Guildenstern and Ophelia. And even more by Hamlet's murder of the father of the girl whom he loves, or whom at least he used to love. Again, in Act 2, write down Act 2, scene number 2, line number 170 to 214. Act 2, scene 2, line number 170 to 214. These lines you have to study intensely for writing the answer. After the class is over, you will go through the text and find out these lines with your text, and then understand these particular speeches, these particular dialogues, and then you have to frame the answer. Otherwise, you will not understand because you haven't read the text. So, Act 2, Scene 2, line number 170 to 214. There you will find that there is a conversation between Hamlet and Polonius, and that particular conversation, it shows that Hamlet is not in his right mind. Hamlet is not at all in his right kind of discomfiture. So Hamlet calls Polonius a fishmonger, and then he proceeds to insult him further by his satirical remarks, such as one that he makes about Polonius's daughter. So you go through the text. There you will find these things. Then again, in Act 3, Scene 1, where a nunnery scene is there. Nunnery, Nunnery, nunnery scene is there. So here he asks her, Ophelia, that means her means Ophelia, to get married, but not to get married, but to go to a nunnery. And later in this play, the particular scene I mentioned, scene 1 of Act 3, where it has been several obscene remarks were made by Hamlet, and Ophelia convinces that it is because of the pure madness of Hamlet that Hamlet told this kind of obscene languages, used this kind of obscene languages. So, Act 3, Scene 1, you will find these obscene languages, and this might have been one of the reasons that Ophelia thought that Hamlet might have gone really mad. So, after he levies her in the scene, she expresses her reaction in a soliloquy saying, "Oh, what a noble mind is here overthrown." So, Ophelia তার soliloquy তে বলছে, Ophelia, um, "Oh, what a noble mind is here overthrown." The mind was really noble, but it is now overthrown. In this soliloquy, she contrasts what he used to be with what he has now become, and concludes, "Oh, woe is me to have seen what I have seen, see what I see." That means that it is my distress, it is my distress what I have seen and what I am seeing now. So there is a vast change before Hamlet's behavior and now what Hamlet is behaving. So this particular Act 3 Scene 1, you have to study. The nunnery scene is there, and that you have to refer in the answer. Next point is Hamlet's murder of Polonius. Hamlet's murder of Polonius. So Hamlet's Madhusudan, can you listen to me? Raise your hand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so Hamlet's murder of Polonius, that is another point which is very vital in association with the consideration whether Hamlet has really gone mad, or is it that he is feigning his madness. So the incident of murder of Polonius, it is true that when he makes a pass with his sword through the arras. What is arras? Arras is a wall hanging of a rich tapestry, like curtains of our house. With that particular curtain, something is concealed. Something is concealed, and that just behind the curtain, if someone stands there, mute করে দাও. If some Sheikh Abdul Rajiv, you mute your microphone. So perhaps he thought that the king was hidden behind the arras. So arras is what I told, is a kind of hanging, wall hanging. It is made of rich tapestry like curtains in our house. So behind that, Hamlet thought that the king was hidden behind that particular arras. And what did Hamlet do there? He passed his sword through the arras. Passed his sword through the arras, and without knowing who is standing behind the curtain. And what happened? One is likely to think him that mad. At this time, Polonius was just behind the curtain, and that was the cause of the death of Polonius. So, after finding Polonius is dead, Hamlet was not at all remorseful. Hamlet was absolutely least remorseful, and finding that he has killed an innocent man, a friend of him. So Hamlet's this behavior, killing Polonius by putting the sword through the arras, and knowing not who is standing behind that curtain or who is standing behind that arras. So it is something like the act of a madman. And after the death of Polonius, I quote the lines from Act 3, Scene 4. Write down lines. Act 3, Scene 4. Act 3, Scene 4, line number 31 to 33. Three lines are there. You check it with your text. The lines are, "Thou wretched, rash, intruding fool, farewell. I took thee for thy better. Take thy fortune. Thou findest to be too busy is some danger." So in Act 3, Scene 4, line number 31 to 33, we find these three lines. "Thou wretched, rash, intruding fool, farewell. Intruding fool, farewell. I took thee for thy better." Thy better, for thy better means in rank of the king. "Take thy fortune." That means take the fate which has befallen you. Take the fate. "Take thy fortune. Thou findest to be too busy in some danger. That means it is unduly interfere. It is absolutely undue interfere to someone else's affair, which is a very dangerous business. So find days to be the busy in some danger. That means he thought that he was standing behind the arras, behind the curtain, to have some sort of uncanny business from behind the curtain. যেমন what we do, we want to overhear someone's conversation, or we want to see something or what other people are doing. So what we do, we generally keep ourselves concealed behind the wall or behind the curtain or behind the arras, whatever it may be. So this is something like too busy for and danger also. That means it is very dangerous business, and it is very unwanted business also. Again, in that same scene number 3, scene number 4, act 3, line number 174 and 75, two lines are there, দুটো লাইন ওখানে আছে, 174 and 175, same act same scene. কি বলছে? These two lines, for this same lord, মানে Hamlet is pointing out to Polonius. Hamlet is pointing out to Polonius, and he says that I do repent, but heaven hath pleased it so. I do repent, but heaven hath pleased it so. I mean, here Hamlet is saying to his mother by pointing out to Polonius that I do repent, but heaven hath pleased it so. That means in this cursory manner, he is referring to the murder. Murder shows him to be utterly heartless, and therefore lends weight to the theory of his madness. তাহলে এখান থেকে আমরা বুঝতে পারি those who critics who are of the opinion that Hamlet was really mad, and these particular 2 lines and the previous 3 lines, these 5 lines point out purely, yes, it corroborates to the view that Hamlet is really mad. Otherwise Hamlet couldn't have killed Polonius, and after killing Polonius, when the dead body is there, Hamlet is showing very little remorse, very little kind of what we say, if someone dies, a kind of pathos comes into our mind, a kind of melancholy comes into it. But Hamlet was totally devoid of all these things. Hamlet has no remorse at all. Hamlet had no kind of pathos in his heart. So this particular 2 lines, for the same lord, that means Polonius, I do repent, but heaven hath pleased it so. The things have happened that God had wanted that. That's why it happened. So the result is nothing else, but it is the want of the God. So again, another point is that that is very important point. When you read the text, you will find that Hamlet's behavior, write down the point, Hamlet's behavior at Ophelia's funeral. Hamlet's behavior at the Ophelia's funeral. If you cannot listen to me properly, then send me one message or restart your phone. If someone lacks me not at all hearing my if I am not audible from your side, so you restart and join, then I will join, because my classroom is open, so I can join everyone. So Hamlet's behavior at Ophelia's funeral, that is another point, which is a pure evidence, or which supports the theory of Hamlet's madness. Why? Because Laertes, who was Laertes? Laertes was the son of Polonius. So Laertes was the son of Polonius. So Laertes, in the wildness of his grief, leaps into Ophelia's funeral. Laertes, in the wilderness of his grief, leaps into Ophelia's grave. Hamlet steps forward and follows a kind of suit. Then when the two were grappling with each other, Hamlet warns him that he will kill him, and then makes a speech in which he challenges Laertes to complete with him in expressing grief over Ophelia's death. So Hamlet's speech here makes the queen say, so there is this is mere madness. So Queen Gertrude, she told, this is mere madness. Write down the phrase within quotation, this is mere madness. So when this particular phrase was uttered by the queen, when we see the scene of Ophelia's funeral, where Laertes, son of Polonius, who jumps in the wilderness and jumps and leaps into the Ophelia's grave, and suddenly Hamlet steps forward and grapples Laertes, and they had a kind of they were grappling with each other. They had a kind of fight with each other, and there Hamlet gave a speech, and that speech challenges Laertes to compete with the expression of grief over Ophelia's death. So here, after listening to this Hamlet's particular speech with Laertes, the queen said this particular phrase: "This is mere madness." THIS. This is mere madness. So it also corroborates to the critics' view that no, Hamlet was really genuine mad in some sort, because of his disposition, because of the two things happened: the remarriage, the hasty remarriage of his mother, and that the ghost has told that it is the working of his uncle who killed the father. So these are the two things which really change the disposition of the mind. So now we come, as we have already discussed in our previous class, all the soliloquies of Hamlet. These particular soliloquies, I think you have all read those lines I have mentioned in my earlier class. So if you read them perfectly and understood all the underlying meanings of those soliloquies, then you will find there that all these soliloquies of Hamlet are not only perfectly coherent and logical, but have a depth of thought which reveal Hamlet as a profound thinker. So Hamlet, if Hamlet is mad, then how could he thought about all these soliloquies? And the soliloquies really reveal that they are really not the working of the mind of eccentricity, a kind of eccentric mind. These are the not the result of eccentric mind. So all these soliloquies of Hamlet are not only perfectly coherent and logical, but they have a depth of thought. And this intense reading of these seven soliloquies of Hamlet, we find that this all show Hamlet as a scholar and a philosopher. Hamlet as a scholar and Hamlet as a philosopher. So, suppose if I mention the first soliloquy where it is said, "The frailty, thy name is woman." Frailty, off quoted frailty. Then we have mentioned in my earlier class, to be or not to be, that is the question. And there was another, that one may smile and be a villain. Smile and be a villain. That means a countenance of a particular person may be smiling, but at the core of the heart, there must be some murdering tendency. There must be some sort of evil tendency. So these are off-quoted soliloquies, off-quoted phrases, phrases which all of us use throughout these ages, and this will be used for forever. So critics question that are these the working of a frenzied mind? Are these the working of a kind of eccentric mind? Had the mind is eccentric, then this kind of soliloquies could not have been uttered by Hamlet. So their point is that no man would have even a touch of madness would have spoken as Hamlet does in soliloquies. So what is their point? But their point is, write down, no man would have been even a touch of madness. No man would had no man would had even a touch of madness would have spoken as Hamlet does in his soliloquies. Next again, we find his wisdom in his speeches with Horatio. Who was Horatio? Horatio was a good friend, earnest friend of Hamlet. So if we analyze the conversation between Hamlet and Horatio, then from the text, then we will see that Horatio comes to Hamlet in the quiet sanity of their conversation, and we see how close their friendship is and how full of calm, good sense were prevailing there. So this talk is another proof that there is no real madness in Hamlet. Another antithetical proof is that the conversation between the or the speech between Hamlet and Horatio. Horatio is a good friend of Hamlet, and with this particular conversation we come to know that the sanity of mind, the saneness of mind is fully expressed in this particular conversation, and is this particular conversation is full of calmness, gentleness, a good sense prevail between them, and their talk was really a proof that their mind, the Hamlet's mind, was not at all eccentric. Hamlet was perfectly good at his brain or at his heart. So, had he been without a confident in his plot to catch the king, he would have been like a madman. But we now hear that he had told all the ghost story and his own to his friend, consulted his thoughts, and made him a shelter of all his thoughts and plans. And he had done this on the sufficient ground of his long experience with Horatio's sterling character. So whatever discussion they did have, like the ghost story, and he confided his friend and told everything, consulted his suggestions, and asked what to do right at this moment. All these things so that no, Hamlet's mind was perfectly okay. So again, the point is the evidence of Polonius. So there is another evidence in Act 1 Scene 2. Act 1 Scene 2 that evidence আছে Polonius thus comments in an aside on Hamlet's strange manner of talking. Hamlet, Polonius once told in Act 1 Scene 2. Act 1 Scene 2, when you will read the text perfectly minutely, then you will find that Polonius had a speech in an aside. Polonius told Hamlet, I quote, though this be madness, yet there is method in it. This is a very important line. Short question may come of 2 marks. By the way, I remember one student, I don't know the name. I'm returning to the next point, that is evidence of Polonius in Act 1, Scene 2. Here Polonius in an aside, he tells a perfectly off-quoted line, that is, though this be madness, yet there is method in. That means there is a method in madness. There is a method in madness. So in Act Scene 1, line number 164 to 66, line number 164 to 166, you will find love, these affections do not that way tend, nor what he spake, though it lacked from a little, was not like madness. Though it lacked from a little, was not like madness. So these three lines are very important, and it suggests that there is a method in madness. We use this phrase also right now in our everyday use of English. Then again, we come to the two other courtiers, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. They do think that Hamlet's condition as a crafty madness. Hamlet's condition as a crafty madness. It is a phrase. Write down the phrase in a quotation. A crafty, crafty, crafty madness. A crafty madness, it means that crafty madness should be within inverted comma. A crafty madness, which means that Hamlet is merely trying to create an impression of madness. Hamlet is trying to create an impression of madness. The fact that Hamlet is merely wearing an antique disposition, that I have told in my very first point, antique disposition. So Hamlet is wearing this kind of particular garment to apparently seeming it that he is mad. So it is being confirmed by Hamlet here when he tells to his two courtiers that I am but mad northwest. When the wind is southerly, I know a hawk from a handsaw. I know a hawk from a handsaw. It is from Act 2, Scene 2, line number 360, 361. Act 2, Scene 2, line number 360, 361. These two lines. Again, we find a small conversation of Hamlet with his mother. That is from Act 3, Scene 4. Act 3, Scene 4, line number 88 to 91. You check these lines in the text after the class is over. So, Act 3, Scene 4, 88 to 91, a conversation between Hamlet with his mother, where Hamlet says, I read these lines, "O Hamlet, speak no more. Thou turnest mine eyes into my very soul, and there I see such black and grey spots as will not leave their tint." I once again reading it. "O Hamlet, speak no more. Thou turnest mine eyes into my very soul, and there I see such black and grey spots and will not leave their tint." So here Hamlet condemns his mother for her marriage to Claudius in such an effective and convincing manner that that Hamlet's mother feels it compelled to say these lines. So the queen, in other words, realizes her error and her guilt. So no madman's words could have weighted this change in the queen. The question is, the critics told that Hamlet been had Hamlet been mad, then he couldn't have uttered these lines. He couldn't have convinced his mother, and his mother wouldn't have uttered these lines. These lines means line numbers 88 to 91. Understand what I am saying, Madhusudan? So, যদি হ্যামলেট সত্যি পাগল হতো,
Yes, sir.
যদি Hamlet been really mad, then Hamlet couldn't have pursued his mother to say or to think that she was wrong somewhere, and her mother couldn't have uttered these three lines from line number 88 to 91 of Act 3 and 4. "Oh Hamlet, speak no more. Thou turnest my eyes into my very soul, and there I could see the black and grey spots and would not leave their ting." So Hamlet was not mad. In this is one of the proof that he gave a kind of boost, he gave a kind of thrust to his mother, to at last she realizes that no, somewhere she did something wrong. So thus time is fleeting. We have to discuss a lot because there are several critics comments were also. So I am skipping some non-important points. Then another point is that the understanding with the conversation or the remark with the grave digger scenes. Grave digger scene I have given in the medium answer type question. You will find there. So his remarks in the grave digger's scene, here Hamlet remarks the observation in the grave digger's scene. It is also another example of perfectly sane thinking of the sane talk, sane people. It corroborates to the view that no, his disposition, Hamlet's disposition was not at all a mad disposition. He recalls the days of his childhood there when he used to play with Yorick, the court jester, and I quote the line, "I knew him, Horatio, a fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times." This was the line. Looking at Yorick's skull, Hamlet observes, "Where be your jibs now, your gambols now, your songs now, your flashes and merriments, and were owned means used to set the table on the road, on a road." So Hamlet's comment on the other skull, which could have been the skull of a politician or a lawyer, are equally full of sense and pregnant with meaning. So what is in nutshell? In nutshell, it has been said by the critics that Hamlet was recapitulating his childhood days. He was talking about some of the incidents and some of the narratives, some of the happenings that really he memorized of his association with his court jester, with his friend, childhood friend Yorick, Yorick, Yorick. And that particular phrase, that particular comment, the utterance might prove or might corroborate to the view that Hamlet was perfectly sane and Hamlet was perfectly all right. There was no touch of madness in his disposition. So this is another point you have to mention while writing the answer. And then again, some when you will read the love theme or love scene I have given for medium type answer type question, the love theme in Hamlet, where you have to mention the love affair or love scene of Hamlet and Ophelia. So there also you will find Hamlet's apparent rudeness towards Ophelia. So Hamlet's rudeness towards Ophelia is I quote 3 or 4 lines from there, or you may write down the particular act or scene. It would be easier to find you the text. That is Act 3, Scene 4, Act 3, Scene 4, line number 174 to 177. Act 3, Scene 4, 174 to 77. Here you find, I quote the line, "For this same Lord I do repent, but heaven hath pleased it so to punish me with this and this with me, that I must be theirs courage and minister." So here also you find the Polonius's death. How Polonius was murdered, and he was not at all grieved over his error. That is being reflected here. And a particular gesture of rudeness towards Ophelia, that was also a proof that Hamlet was not at all mad. So this point you have to mention. And another point I missed, that is a comment by Polonius. Polonius himself has commented in a previous aside that how pregnant sometimes his replies are. Very important line. How pregnant sometimes his replies are. A happiness that often madness hits on, and which reason and sanity could not so purposefully be delivered of. I mean, pregnant, here pregnant means full of thought, full of thought. How pregnant sometimes his replies. I mean, the replies that that Hamlet provides is full of pregnant thoughts. That means full of rational thoughts, full of sane things. So if a person is really mad, then how could he utter these pregnant or thoughtful speeches? So that is another point mentioned by Polonius. So these are the very common things you have to mention while preparing the answer. Now, as the time is almost only 15 or 20 minutes left, so I have to come to the critic's view, that you have to make a note in your notebook. Then you will find it in web, or you find it in some of Shakespeare's criticism book. I am just mentioning the points. You just note down the points. The number 1 is Stoppard Brooks view. Stoppard Brooks, S-T-O-P, Stoppard, F-O-R-D, Brook spelling double O, B-R-O-O-K-E, Brook, B-R-O-O-K-E apostrophe, Stoppard Brooks view. Stoppard's Brook, what did that particular critic say? He writes in this connection that when a person of thinking, reflective, and philosophical type meets a person of the active, practical, and quick deciding type, neither of them can understand the other. And the easiest way to express their way of comprehension is to say, this person is mad or half mad. So it is a very important observation. I am repeating it. Try to listen to it carefully. When Stoppard Brook, he said, when a person of the thinking, reflective, philosophical type meets a person of the active, practical, and quick deciding type, neither of them can understand the other. Neither of them can understand the other. And the easiest way to express their want of comprehension is to say, যেমন we do in our present life. If we don't categorically give importance to someone else, then what do? This person is mad or half mad. So this is just what Polonius and King of the Queen and Ophelia, but not Horatio said to Hamlet, just what a number of critics have said about him. These critics draw attention to many acts and words of Hamlet as tainted with madness, and many specialists in insanity eagerly try to prove this point. These critics and psychologists are sure that Hamlet was mad or nearly mad. So they do not ask themselves whether Shakespeare meant him to be mad or why Horatio never thought him mad or on the verge of madness. On the verge of madness. These do not stop to consider whether a madness can be so sequent as Hamlet in his all that he says. So there is a argument and there is a counter argument between a group of critics, and each group they corroborate and they cited, they gave some examples from the text, words, phrases, speeches, quotations, conversations, to show their point that yes, he was really mad. And another group they counterattack and they showed that no, it is not his madness but he is feigning. So now the question is, Stoppard group, is that Shakespeare never intended to represent Hamlet as mad or half mad or ranging to madness. So Shakespeare expressly made Hamlet a feigner of madness, and when he wished to represent real madness and to contrast it with feigned madness, he creates a real madness of Ophelia and did. Uh, so I think there is a problem in network connectivity. It is showing the network is not connecting. Connectivity problem. It is showing. Or no? Can you listen to me? Or no?